Welcome to the Real Advisor Podcast, TRAP. Please follow us and join in the conversation on Twitter @Advisor Podcast, where you can suggest ideas and themes you'd like the TRAP team to discuss. Also remember to like and subscribe to our YouTube channel and leave a 6 out of 5-star review on iTunes. Doing all this really helps us, which means we can do more to help you. Now let's head over to the studio for the latest pile of TRAP.
Yes, indeed, dear Trappists. Welcome back to what many people are calling episode 36 of the Real Advisor Podcast, TRAP, Trap. My name is Lick Ninken, and joining me in 2024 in the digital studio of doom are the 3 other horsemen of the apocalypse. Carl the Voice Widger, Andy Ultra Heart, and
Happy
Alan
New
the
Year.
Storyteller Smith. Now, gentlemen, we have a show packed full of absolutely nothing. So let's start unpacking it straight away with some more high energy reviews read out by my good friend, Mr. Andrew Hart.
A couple of long ones today. I'm somewhat nursing a bit of a cold, so bear with me. First one is from Ian N007, 6 out of 5, 5 stars. I'm one of the non-IFAs listening to this fantastic-ish enlightened Trapcast. Being from the other side of the financial world, on the high-frequency trading side, it's refreshing to see behavioural financial planning being applied for the greater good. I see it time after time, more complex products being introduced to people who don't really understand them, but feel they have earned the right to be in that exclusive club of being bamboozled by numbers and new ideas. It amazes me how these people have no idea about personal finance and tax planning, great at making money, but very hard for them to keep it. Keep up the good fight. I'm enjoying it immensely. Next review is entitled Inspirational, Enlightening and Jovial, 5 stars. This is from Simon_J Planner. A fantastic podcast, whether you are at the start of your career in financial planning or decades in. I've been advising for 5 years, 15 years in the industry, and I've been following Andy since I heard him on the Next Gen podcast some time ago. Through following Andy, I have since discovered Nick and Alan. Yeah, it's a common route. And I'm pleased to have added Carl to the listening. It's refreshing to get views from outside of my own firm and network. Andy, Nick, Alan and Carl are clearly committed to providing full-fat financial planning. Their different styles and approaches mean that they don't always agree and have a healthy and respectful debate. The upshot being the podcast isn't an echo chamber. The gents obviously get along very well, and this comes across. Nick's sound effects are a fun addition too. There are things I regularly say and do with clients that have come from this podcast. Keep up the good work, chaps, both the pod and the good you do for your clients. Simon Jones. Back to you, Nick.
Fantastic. Thank you for those 2 reviews. Lovely. Do keep them coming in via it'll be via iTunes, won't it? It's the only way you can do it. Great stuff. Okay, so topical tidbits. Let's give this a timestamp. It's obviously the start of the year. We're all full of energy and hope, and we've wiped the slate clean of 2023. And in 2023, this IFA forum that I run, this Google group thing, I put a call out on LinkedIn and on Twitter on the 31st of December to say, can we get to above 400 members? We were at 390 odd. And has sudden influx. So we're now at 436 members of the IFA forum. And if you want to join it, the link's in the so-called show notes. It's a very good resource. It might drive you crazy if you don't like emails, because with 400 people, it's a lot of back and forth, but you can set up a filter in your email client of choice to maybe post the emails you get and look at it maybe twice a day. But I use it a lot. If you're a one-man band especially, or a small IFA practice and you haven't got the technical desk that you would have with a bigger firm, the IFA forum is a very good resource. That's enough self-promotion from me. Now, Wodge, you're not a man who likes confrontation. You keep your head down. You don't aggravate most of Ireland most of the time. Tell me why you picked a fight with the FIRE movement, my friend.
Happy New Year, Nicholas. So we covered the FIRE movement a little time back there. It's only probably a couple of months ago. And I retweeted something in the last day or two from Justin Welch, Welsh. And the first line is, I'm convinced the FIRE movement is a gimmick. And I am too. And I've reflected and I probably wasn't as vociferous about this when we covered it, but I suppose as you approach the end of the year and you reflect back on what's happened and then you're planning for the year ahead, one thing that I have struggled with massively all of my career is hitting a target and what's next and understanding, I suppose, when you get to that target that it's not all it was cracked up to be and that you gotta really enjoy the journey. And what's the FIRE movement? The FIRE movement is, right, do all the penny pinching, and then when I have enough, I will be happy, and it's all about, giving up and, not allowing yourself to, spend money basically on experiences or things. And I just thought, you know what? I think the FIRE movement is a load of BS. I really do. And I don't think anybody should go through life constantly depriving yourself, especially of experiences. And yeah, I could go on. I won't. Enjoy life, enjoy the journey, folks, because that's all we have.
That was a really interesting thread, and then loads of comments on Twitter, wasn't it? Justin Welsh, for anyone that doesn't know him and doesn't follow him, should follow him. His content is extraordinary. I've done his LinkedIn course. And so he's not from financial services at all. He's just someone who's a successful solopreneur creating his own financial independence. And he just reflected on it and thought, this is nonsense because of the amounts of sacrifice. Now, I know, and Andy's going to jump in a minute and say, which is true, there are degrees of it. And some people absolutely seem to deny themselves, live on, boiled rice and top ramen and sort of live in penury for 10, 20, 30 years in order that they can, walk away from a job that they hate. But I think fundamentally what we do is a version of it, which is what we want to get is the first FI, the financial independence bit. The retiring early is just it's a term. And I think there's just such a wide range of it, but it seems to have gathered a lot of momentum because of it. And the more famous ones, like Mr. Money Moustache, who kind of founded the whole thing, certainly seems to be quite extreme in his lifestyle and his behavior and his sort of choices that he's made over the years, the ones that he's promoted. So I'm with you, Carl, on it. I think I agree. What do you think, Andy?
Yeah, Andy's staying still with us. He said he would do at the start. He said, fair enough. It's a balancing act, isn't it? We obviously want clients to be saving for their future selves so they don't run out of money later on in life. But there's a balancing act, man. We want our clients also to have a full life and an active life, and we want them to have the same kind of quality of life in retirement that they have while they're earning money. So I don't know. I mean, the thing that piqued me was this: Mr. Money Moustache chose to have one child because that's what he thought he could afford. If he had more than that, it would ruin his retire early plans. I'm thinking, man, you've got your. To me, that's a value system that's upside down. Anyway, let's not. I'm
going to say one point on it, Nick. As a sort of movement, as a force, their conclusion is to invest in 100% global equities, which I've never seen that outcome from anything else. So that's just one enormous great point from it. Yeah, I mean, it depends how you use these principles and balance it off. It's a bit of a straw man argument to just go after the extremes. And it's a little bit insulting to think that these people that are on the FIRE journey do not enjoy the now and spend money on experiences. So it's a balancing act. It's trade-offs. It's like everything in life. But I think the principles are sound. Control your expenses, know what you're spending, invest in global equities, work out what your number is, and then live your life around it. Obviously, taking an extreme of, I'm only having one child because I'm doing the FIRE movement. Obviously, yeah, that's not cool. But then there are other people that do fat FIRE that have lots of, incredible amounts of income coming in, but they just control their expenses. So it's like everything. There's good points and bad points with it. But as a movement to promote 100% global equities, we don't see that anywhere. So that can only be commended.
Did you just say fat FIRE?
Yeah,
that's
fat
the thing.
FIRE.
But fat FIRE is basically what we do.
Yeah, exactly.
It's like put a brand and a name on it. It's just good quality financial planning.
I'm just using the terminology within the space.
Yeah, but
I'm not making up something myself.
Yeah, but Andy, what you've just described is exactly what Alan said. It's real financial planning, But real financial planning can't be about.
The principles of FIRE are the same as what we preach. Yeah, there's obviously extremes to all of them, but the principles are sound. Control your expenses, invest your excess in global equities, plan what your number is, and then retire to something that you like more. You know, it's not retire to do nothing, again, which is something that people talk about. It's not retire to a beach at 33 and do nothing for the rest of your life and be unproductive. But again, there probably is one person that did that. That's not all of FIRE.
Well, if I could just counter on that, financial independence, retire early, right? So for me, any of the reading I've done on the FIRE movement is exactly that. It's about like, I'm going to retire to a beach and to just do nothing. So that's not what real financial planning is about. It's about trying to, I suppose, get into the psyche of the client to see, well, what does the third act, as I describe it, what does that look like? And what do you want to do? And I don't know. Look, I think it'll be a pretty miserable existence to sit in a beach just because you've penny pinched for 20 or 25 years.
It doesn't happen.
Anyway,
it doesn't happen. They might do it for a couple of weeks, but that the people I've come across in real life that are doing FIRE and practicing, they're often giving up work once they hit their number to do something that they're way more passionate about. So they're adding more good to the world once they've ticked the finance and the number game. This is real people I've worked with. But
and the reason you've come across them is because you're working with them to do real financial planning, and that's massively different than the FIRE movement. And I get it that there are extremes, but putting off this is my whole premise here is this is a journey that we're all on, and you've got to try and enjoy the journey because
you've got to enjoy the journey. 100%.
It's not a rehearsal, and always thinking I will be happy when it does not work. It does not work.
Yeah, that's correct. That's correct.
Okay, that was very good. We had enough tension there, but we're still in love with each other, liking this very much. Okay, the next topical tidbit. Well, this is we could. There must be I think there's almost an endless supply of these tidbits that the so-called experts throw out. But I just saw something from Morgan Stanley that Morgan Stanley put out on the 19th of December 2022, basically their predictions for the S&P for last year, for 2023. I'll read out the opening paragraph and then we can move on. But there's a link to this in the so-called show notes. And if you're an advisor, I would suggest this is the kind of content you want to be putting under your clients' noses and saying, this is what I protect you from. So it starts, US equities are set for their worst year since the global financial crisis. And according to Morgan Stanley strategist Michael Wilson, your mother must be proud, Michael, corporate profits are about to meet the same fate. Well, and in the same article, apparently the S&P was due to go down to as low as 3,000. Well, we know what happened in 2023, don't we, dear Trappists? Another example of the dangers of the dying legacy media and its pernicious effect on our clients and the culture it creates. Mr. Hart.
This is very much you, isn't it, Nick? Everyone else is looking at the predictions for the following year. You go back to the previous year and just prove how wrong they are, which I like, which is very interesting.
Yeah, you got to.
So you're going to be doing that forever, aren't you? You're going to be doing that forever, aren't you?
Once a decade, these people get it right, don't they? And then they just crow on about it. It's like, no, hold on, let's just look at your complete.
Yeah, we should have like an amber system. Like last year, it was definitely red. Like this year, it might be amber. They might actually hit green at one point.
But I think that's the point, and I'll sort of just shoehorn my topical tidbit in here now at an appropriate juncture, because I do the same as well. Last couple of years, I've become a bit more Nick-like, and when I see all these predictions, I save them. I think I'll just check. I've only done it a couple of years, and every time they are so wildly wrong. So I posted something on LinkedIn just before the year, on the last day of the year, I think it was the 31st, or the last trading day of the year, whatever that was, 29th or something of December. And it was not just Morgan Stanley, it was all the big, banks, investment banks who do, and most of them, and why they do this, I guess the customers or clients want them to do it, but they are expected to give a prediction for where the S&P will be by the end of the trading year. And you name them, all the big guns, all the names. I think Barclays, was the worst. They were just so they predicted 3,700. So they were just so wildly out, and loads of them were just so wildly out. So what was interesting? So I posted that kind of benign comment just as we're wrapping up for the year end. I thought, well, that's just interesting. The point is not really to have a go at them, but you think with the armies of economists and PhDs and whatever they call all the sort of complex experts that these organizations have got. And it wasn't as if they were just a little bit out. They were just wildly out. You could not be more wrong if you tried. So I posted that, and it just took off. It went viral, as the cool kids say, because I think it had about 500,000 engagements on the whole thing. And then you had a load of other people piling on, and everyone's got their opinion on this stuff. And I have to say, and no names mentioned, but back to the point, and maybe something that you're going to talk about. We certainly come back to this every time. And one of the reasons that we're all likely to be in gainful employment for the next few years at least, because it keeps coming up. So I post that, and it is just about the S&P, but let's face it, the S&P is the biggest. It represents most of kind of human ingenuity, 500 of the biggest, most successful companies in the world. So it is representative. And then somebody piled in after that and says, yes, but what if clients are happy with cash returns? And you're quoting like a US dollar denominated account or something. And I just thought, I didn't reply to it because there's just too much wrong with the statement. I thought, what if clients are quite happy with cash returns? And I didn't know where to go with that one, because
where do you start unpacking that?
And also about dollar denomination and stuff like that. There's just, and to say things like that, just again, unfortunately, and we've commented on things like this in the past, and other sort of well-known journalists who've said same sort of things, that what if, and I think the person said, I think it was the same comment. If it's not, it might be a blend of a couple of others. But what if the client is taking income, inflation's at 10%, and they're taking income for 5% from it? That's going to be a disaster from it. What if the market went down or something? And to say things like that is another example of someone who doesn't understand the fundamentals of real financial planning. And I'm sorry to keep harping on about this, and we sound like a sort of broken record to keep going on about it. But this is like a couple of days ago that this happened. It keeps happening from what would appear to be. And I don't want, this is not personal at all. Everyone's got their own opinions. Everyone's got their own views. But there's a basic fundamental misunderstanding of the work that we do. It was incredible.
I wouldn't say financial planning, Alan. I'd say investing. This individual, I know who they were, highly qualified, spent hundreds of hours in this space, thousands of hours with clients, and publicly confirming that they are an investing illiterate. I love it. It's absolutely brilliant. But it's mind-blowing that someone can spend that long doing their trade and still have not a clue what on earth they're actually meant to be doing. It's beautiful, but it's insane. So that even the professionals have no idea what they're doing, let alone end clients that are just bombarded with complete and utter, BS from usually young, broke journalists that also are investing illiterates. But hey ho, as you say, we'll still be in gainful employment.
Okay. And slightly leading from that, my next topical tip is a very quick one. I've just had a really good. Well, I'll talk about that actually in the meat and potatoes. But I've taken on board a new client family at the very tail end of last year. Had the discovery meeting on a Monday, had the planning meeting on a Tuesday, and at the end of the planning meeting, they said yes, we want to come on board. So effectively, they were the whole loop took 48 hours, which I was happy with. Of course, this client born in 1980, so that makes him 43, and he is a high flyer. He worked for BT. And he is in the BT Group Personal Pension Scheme. It's uber bright guy, ultra driven, really nice, a delegator, perfect for me. £500,000 in his pension pot, and before I do the thing of probably, because obviously each client is different, but before I shoehorn him onto my preferred platform, I have to look at his existing arrangements with the XYZ insurance company. And he's got a very cheap scheme because it's the BT pension scheme, and obviously group pension schemes do get these discounts. And so I've got to be cognizant of that. And the platform that I might move him and his family onto are going to be maybe 30 bips more a year. But this is where the whole asset allocation or the asset allocation thing is just so incredible. This guy has, for the last 10 years or so, had his pension fund in an insurance company fund capped equity exposure at 60%, 60. Basically, over 10 years, that fund has trailed inflation. It's just staggering. He has lost money in real terms over 10 years, and he's in a fund that's capped equities at 60%. He's 43. The cash flow indicates that his pension fund is likely to remain invested for the rest of his life. And here we are worrying about, oh my God, this platform is 20 bips more expensive than that. And just the value we can add by encouraging clients to go into the great companies of the world and just hold their nerve through the temporary declines. It knocks everything else into a cocked hat. So what I haven't done with this client, and I'm going to go back to him and say, just tell me, H, how did you end up in this fund? Because God forbid this is the default fund for the BT pension scheme. They've got loads of people in their 30s and 40s going into a fund that hasn't even kept pace with inflation over the last 10 years. Absolutely. Well, I know, Andy, it's one of your, rings your bells. To me, that's pretty scandalous. I'm happy to move on unless anyone's got anything to comment on that. Okay, good stuff. All right, the last, but no means least, Voice. You've got the Bitcoin story in full. Regale us.
Yeah, so we spoke about the Bitcoin surge during 2023, and it was up 156% in the last episode. And then I read this article, and because I don't follow Bitcoin because I don't believe in it, but when I read this article, I thought, we need to tell the full story here, because yes, Bitcoin was up 156% in 2023 and is at about $46,000 now. But it peaked in November 2021, which is not that long ago. November, remember, 2021, at 69,000. So it needs to grow by another 50% from its 46,000 to get back to its peak. Now, we've all been through a period of, we've spoken about this a lot, kind of sideways movement and how difficult it is with clients. So I think everybody needs to be cognizant of where this has come from, and the volatility that is associated with Bitcoin, because there's a long way to go. If you invested a lot of your money in this back in late 2021, there's a long way to go before you're back to parity. So I just thought, rather than, because I'm reading, Alan has just spoken about it there, about all these predictions, on the rise or the continued surge of Bitcoin. Just be careful, because it is extremely volatile. And, for financial planning clients, think about how difficult you found it when the markets were going sideways for 2 years. Well, if, you were in a position whereby we need another, having had 156% growth, we need another 50% growth from today to get you back to break even. That's where you're going to be at if you invest in Bitcoin. And just, I suppose, generally speaking, I was biting my tongue there, Alan, as you were talking, because, I think a lot of these predictions they're driven by what these investment houses can offer. And they're, people saying, cash returns should be fine. Well, maybe they have a cash fund that they're putting out there, and I saw...
does it charge 1% a year to manage cash?
Perhaps, but I saw, look, there's lots of instances out there. You just got to be careful who you're listening to, and where and what they're motivated by. I saw another firm in Ireland whose global macro council came out with some predictions. Their global macro, come on. Jesus Christ.
Ask Nick, what does your global macro council believe the markets are going to do?
Well, our global macro council has a top-down, bottom-up approach to global stock picking on a value rotation basis, but we think that cyclical headwinds are favourable for a non-secular return to fundamental valuations.
Love it.
Oh, they love that.
Yeah. You mean at Christmas dinner and your mum says, "What do you do now, love?" I'm heading up the global macro council.
Oh my God. But Carl, you make a couple of good points there. One is this. It's an example of classic, I think, the Warren Buffett statement: never ask a barber if you need a haircut. People have got incentives in order to say these things. It wasn't long ago, as you were talking about the big high of Bitcoin of a couple of years ago. There were people, intelligent people that were predicting Bitcoin was going to get to $1 million a Bitcoin, not where it is now, 40-odd thousand. It's going to get to 1 million within and that sounds very convincing and compelling. And you've got there's so much psychology around Bitcoin. There's a massive fear of missing out, because what if it did go to 1 million and I didn't invest in it? It'd be the worst decision in my life, sort of thing. So there's
and it's like the Bitcoin story ain't going away, right? So that's for sure. And it looks like there's going to be an ETF approved by the Fed and all that kind of stuff. So this is going to be high on everyone's agenda, right? And then the people who are incentivized to get you into Bitcoin are going to tell you about the 156%. But remember, you gotta. All I'll say is we need 50% more growth, which is massive, in order to get you back to even if you invested in November 21.
The last thing that I would say on this is one of the reasons I believe has driven the price up is exactly because of that, is getting regulatory approval in the US. BlackRock have announced. Interestingly, Vanguard have said not interested. Tells you something. BlackRock, don't mention, Nick's desperately searching for his drop.
No.
Okay, so but BlackRock have said yes, they're going to launch this. Now, if you think about probably the fundamental reason and the foundation of Bitcoin in particular, but all cryptocurrencies, but Bitcoin in particular, is the kind of decentralization. It's not government controlled, it's not bank controlled, it's not institutional controlled, it's sort of for the people, by the people. As soon as you create a product which is regulated by the SEC and is operated by an organization like BlackRock, you've lost all the fundamental reasons that you first... There he goes.
Happy New Year!
You got there in the end.
Yeah, I said regulated by the Fed, but you're right, by the SEC,
Yeah, but the Fed are part of the whole sort of institutional thing, and that's the point of this. Everyone, all the real Bitcoiners call them maximalists, they say, no, we're nothing to do with this. This centralized government, central banks, all that sort of stuff. We can control all the stuff ourselves, and yet, there's a product because organizations like BlackRock and others, no doubt, of course, they can make a few bucks on it. But it were interesting what they charge on their ETF. They'll certainly be charging a good few basis points to people, and I bet they'll raise billions on it. I bet they will. A lot of advisors will say, well, there's nothing wrong with putting 5% of your wealth into it. Anyway, it's an interesting story. Good point you make, Carl. We'll carry on the spirit of Kumbaya in 2024. Brilliant point, Carl. I love what you say. In fact, I love all your comments.
God.
Yeah.
Okay. 27 minutes, 27 seconds in. I think we've given the topical tidbits a damn good thrashing. Let's move on to the next segment of the show, the meat and potatoes of the show. And yes, 2023 is behind us and we're starting a new year. We have a fresh sheet of paper. The canvas is clean. The slate has been wiped. But it's also still a good time to look back at what we did in 2023. Things that went well, things that went not so well, and perhaps what our goals are for 2024. So, Carl, voice, Della Voce, lead us off with 3 wins that you had in 2023, professional wins.
Yeah, so this is kind of inspired by, I have a coach called Tommy Geary who works with me, and Tommy never knows how important he is to me and how much I believe in what he says and then try and actually put into place what he says. So this was something that Tommy encouraged me to do in kind of November, December, which was the kind of 3-2-1, which was, your 3 wins, your 3 kind of not so, your 3 things that didn't work so well, and then your big goal for next year. So, so to lead off from my 3, so I'm trying to mostly do this. I would encourage people, this is a good exercise to do kind of professionally and personally. Obviously, they will cross over, but sitting down and doing this exercise is really, really good. Anyway, 3 things I think we did really well in 2023 in Metis. Get on with it, Carl. I think we hired really well. So last year we added, I think, 6 new people to the team, which is, significant. It's a kind of 50% increase in our headcount. And we took our time with it, right? And that was a great learning from the past where we might have hired quickly and just got people on board that maybe didn't necessarily suit the culture of the business. But I think taking our time and spreading the load. So it wasn't just me hiring. We had various people in the business doing the hiring, and we had kind of 2 people involved in each of the hires. So I think we're in a really, really good place. We have a planning meeting now on the 16th of January, and everyone's going to be at that. And I'm genuinely excited as to where we can go with the team that we've put in place now. So that was a definite yes and good green tick for us. Events, we did loads of events last year. I've spoken a lot about, the Metis way of doing the events, etc. I think we did, 14 or 15 different events ranging from big ones to smaller ones and everything in between. We did, the men only golf stuff. We did the couple stuff. We had our client advisory panel. Some of the guys in Limerick did a panto towards the end of the year as well. So I think we're getting in a really good groove with the events. They do cost money, but we've created budgets now for every private client manager. And we have a lot of really good stuff planned for next year, which is important because we used to do things kind of ad hoc and just, oh yeah, that sounds like a great idea. Whereas actually, if you take the time to plan it out at the start of the year, which is what we did in 2023 at the start of the year, it works much, much better. And you get definitely greater bang for your buck. And you can kind of, prepare the events so they can be that 5-6 star experience. And then the last one, and I'll talk about maybe a not so win in a little while, but it was amazing for me to see some of the individuals on the team really, going that extra mile and maximizing their own potential. And that's inspiring to me when you see this, after all, was started, and it was the Widger story, right? It's no longer, it's Metas Ireland now. And there's an awful lot of key players in the team. And that inspires me because it pushes me on and makes me try to get better every day. So that was definitely something that was, that gives me great pride. So obviously I'm going to kind of try and develop that if I can again in 2024. So who's next? Give us 3 wins from 2023.
Brilliant stuff. Shall I go?
Yeah.
Do.
Happy with me going? Thanks, guys. Okay, so my 3, well... So the first thing that I did that I'm, on reflection, very happy about is I want to have the most elegant, simple financial planning business, albeit a lifestyle business, in the that Joe Public can possibly be exposed to. And in the last year, as I've talked about before, I've done that with my investment approach. I've rationalized it further. One fund to rule them all. My message, you only need 3 pots. You've got your tax-free pot, you've got your free money pot, and you've got your growth pot. That's all you need. And I'm going to continually hone in 2024. This is not my goal, but it's part of the win of last year, is to use language that people understand. I will never use an advice letter. I'll never put the words crystallized funds in an advice letter. I will never put the phrase pension commencement lump sum in an advice letter. I think it's evil. It's just evil to deluge people with this garbage. It's all about communication and keeping things simple and making things more and more refined. As Andy often says, we spend years learning stuff in the industrial side of our business, and then we shed it, and what's left behind is the essence of what we should be doing. My second win was I had a really good business year. I mean, it sounds somewhat gross somehow, but I mean, I took on board 7 families last year, which for me is a considerable amount of new clients. That's 7 to me. That's 7 clients saved from the financial wilderness, and I haven't done anything particularly different in terms of my marketing, because I don't do any marketing. But I think with Trap and everything else, I think what goes around comes around, and somehow you do get back what you put out there. And the third win is on Trap. Actually, that Trap is my third win. I just I can't pretend that it hasn't been a really good fun thing that's in my life now. And the boost we get from people who, when we meet. When we go to events and stuff, who love Trap, it's absolutely fantastic. It's been a real fillip for me over the last year. So those are my 3 wins, gentlemen. If there's no comment on any of those, we'll go to the next one of you who wants to describe your 3 wins for 2023.
Shall I go? Thank you. Yeah, waiting for it. Thank you, Nick. We will be we'll have been in business for 20 years this year. So last year was our 19th year in business. So we're a pretty mature business now, really. And so in terms of what was a win, we had our best year ever in terms of both top line revenue, profitability, and client wins. So you reflect back and say, well, what do you know? You said you did nothing differently. You said that you did nothing. You had a great year as well. You did nothing differently. Don't forget, last year was, to all intents and purposes, was a challenging year. We'd also, record inflation, war in the Middle East, Ukraine war still going on, et cetera, et cetera. Loads and loads of headwinds, as your macro committee would reflect on. And yet, we all seem to have had positive years. And so I reflect back, what did we do? Was it luck? I think one of the biggest things that we did was we got intentional. I think intentionality is a big thing. It's very easy after several years just to kind of drift along, and one year is like the next. If you put, like a lot of things in life, if you say you're going to do something and you really focus on it, and you say we are going to achieve it, and then you begin to work out how you're going to do it. If you say we're going to have the best year ever, you can't just show up and do everything that you've done before and assume that everything will suddenly become better. So we set ourselves some stretch goals and some stretch targets. We began, it's still a work in progress, but we really began to nail the marketing side of things after all these years and recognizing this sort of modern digital era. I'll talk a little bit more about that in a moment. My colleague, some of you know, we all know to varying degrees, George. Shout out to George Barboff, who kind of heads our sort of marketing and developing, and a sort of separate shout out to him. And whilst we're promoting things, George has just launched a little sort of side hustle for advisors who want to launch their own podcast. We all believe in the podcast as a medium, and he's really nailed it. I mean, he produces my award-winning podcast, Bulletproof Entrepreneur. And there's none of the other noise. There's none of the heavy breathing. There's no painters in the background. There's no alarms and stuff. He does a really good job, and he's launched a product and a course, which is, I think it's well worth checking out. Check him out online, George Barboff, Barbov. And the last thing, and it's related to Carl's point as well, is that when we got more intentional, begin to track data. We've never really tracked data rigorously in the past, but proper businesses do that. Grown up, mature businesses, they know the revenue streams, they know the profit centers, they know where progress is happening. So they got far better at tracking data. We use the what's it called? Can't remember, but Microsoft have got a built-in tool that you can, there's so much data around our businesses, but we're paying a lot more attention to that. My own content program got just better, improved. I looked at LinkedIn numbers last week. LinkedIn numbers, I had something like 4 million impressions over the last year. Now you think, well, what the hell is an impression? What does it mean? But that stuff has led to so many things. I've mentioned before, it still is second to referrals, but our sort of digital marketing, creation, whatever you want to talk about, is now become a significant positive influence to our revenue and our growth. So that was a success. And the last one I'll say is a personal one, but I think it relates to all these things, which was I was intentional about carving out my own time. I had 2 weeks skiing, which I love doing. I took 4 weeks off pretty much. I know we've talked about do you actually switch off completely? I don't switch off completely, but I had a good time over the summer. And of course, the trap trips, which what goes on abroad, it stays abroad. But our trip to Mallorca in the summer, our trip to Paris for the rugby, it was just fabulous. Really good, say no more, but really good experiences. And I think that's really important as well. So if I reflect back what was good, whilst we have a good year, plenty of sort of personal time, family time, fun time as well. So I'll leave it there. Thank you.
That's excellent. Thank you, Anna, for those 13 wins were really, really good, and I'm glad you got through them so quickly. Okay, so let's turn the carousel of doom back, pointing at Watchu's laughing his head off, but you can't hear him, Travis, because he's muted. Carl, what were 2 lessons that you learned from 2023?
No, it's back to me, Nick.
Oh, sorry, fellas.
It's my 3.
Completely my fault. Sorry, Andrew.
Sorry. He rambled on so long, you've forgotten where we are.
I know. I thought, is it still? What day is it now? Anyway, let's get back on it.
Are we still on track? Well, all right. I'm going to keep mine pretty short and sweet. So my number 3 win was Maven Money hit 300 episodes. Sort of a win-loss sort of thing because I've hung up the mic, which is rather unlike me. I feel like a bit of an amateur now, not a professional when it comes to creating content. But anyway, I felt it was it run its course.
Andy,
It's nothing.
the ultra crepidarian Andy. He knows about everything, Andy. Can't be told anything. His name is Andrew Hart. Andrew Hart!
Thank you, Nick. Okay, so that's my number 3. Maven Money hit 300 episodes. I stopped it in September 2023, and currently I'm at 1.15 million downloads, so all good on that front. Next is a mini personal win. I moved into a new home. I've been divorced about 3.5 years now, so I've sort of been between places, been a bit of a nightmare, but now I've finally found a lovely place that I call my perfect home for me and my kids.
Fridge.
So I'm
Nice fridge.
Nice fridge, same fridge as you, Nick. So that's all good. And my number 1 win, again, it's a professional win, Humans Under Management Premium, my sort of global membership resource thing for financial advisors. We hit 200 members. I think we hit 200 members in November 2023. So there's a lot of content we put out via there, and hopefully we're trying to spread the good message. So that's my final win. So that's my 3, 2, 1.
Just a quick point, Nick. Just you criticising me. There's no point in me saying we had a good year. That's number 1. Number 2 is such and such, because that doesn't mean anything to anyone. The important point is to reflect back on why and what you did, and that other people might want to do or reflect on, or just we've got to be careful about an element of so what. Now, on to the failures.
Right. Okay, that's me told. Carl.
So, what are 2 things that didn't work so well last year or needs work? So I think the first one is linked to actually something that I said was a win, which is I could see some of the team members really just going for it, right? You give them their wings and they took the opportunity and they went for it. But what has worked for us, we're actually 10 years old this year, 2024, which is amazing, right? But what has got us to this place here and what will work going forward are 2 different things. So what I found certainly towards the second half of the year was that there wasn't that, I'm not going to say there was no teamwork. Of course, there was loads of teamwork, but we didn't have a concerted approach in terms of teams and communication within the organization. So we're going to try and do an awful lot of work on, making sure that one person is responsible for, making sure that there's massive communication within the team. And just to see, if we want to go fast, we'll go on our own. But if we want to go far, we'll go together. And it's really, I'm absolutely comfortable that we have a team full of massive potential. But it's my job to put the structures in place to make sure that we go as a team and we do this as a team. So I think that's a big learning curve for me. And that kind of leads to the second one, which is I got totally and utterly bogged down between the 2 roles that I do, which is the CEO role and the private client manager role. And as of the end of this year, I still manage the most amount of money within the business. That's going to change, because what happened in the second half of the year was I got so overrun with all of the work that I had to do. I ended up being an okay CEO and an okay private client manager. And that's not going to serve the business very well at all. So we've spent a lot of time, myself and our chairman, Tom Tierney, and our CFO, Paddy O'Halloran, working on how best do we make sure that, we spread the load, I suppose, in terms of the private client manager work and make me focus more on the CEO work. It's a risk. Okay. It's definitely a risk and it's a little bit scary, but I'll hold the whole thing back if I don't actually do this. So that's, I'm not going to be leaving the private client manager work entirely, but I'm definitely going to be doing way, way, way less of it because I got to trust in the great people that we have in the team. And I got to trust that clients will actually be better served with dedicated PCMs as opposed to me being reactionary. And, I'm depending all the time on the relationships that I've built up with people. That's, that'll last for a while, but after a while, people will start getting pissed off. So they're the two kind of learnings or the two things that didn't work so well last year that I'm going to be focusing on.
Okay, Mr. Smith has got a comment that's just tremendous value.
Just a little bit of feedback to that on that last point in particular, Carl. This is just the classic road that growth-oriented firms go on, which I think you and I have spoken about this at least briefly in the past, and I've gone through exactly the same thing some years ago. Got to the point where I was best mediocre at everything. I know you're going to say, yeah, that was an improvement, but because I had so many things on my plate, I was juggling everything, same as you. Biggest clients, all the major clients, all the more complex clients, plus I was running a business and hiring people, doing all negotiating with landlords, etc. So I stepped away from it. This is a common problem. I've actually got a call later on today with another very successful advisor who'd like to talk about this. It might be the subject of a future meat and potatoes or something. Is kind of the natural evolution as you grow from being a sort of full-time financial planner and then strategically and running the business and the CEO kind of role, which is a different role. And both are full-time roles and something has to give. So it could be an interesting conversation in the future, but good points.
Thank you.
Hockey docky. So round to me then, and the two lessons that I learned in 2023. And again, Alan, this may be just a bit too much so what, but so what? The lesson I've learned is that we say this a lot, but we do kind of live in a goldfish bowl to a degree. And we think the entire world, our world, is doing the same out there that we do in our little goldfish bowl, and we don't. And our work is never done. It's just incredible. And I think we take for granted that sometimes we're kind of achieving this nirvana where everyone's switched on to real financial planning and Joe Public gets it. I'm telling you, they never will. That Morgan Stanley thing that I use in the topical tidbits, well, you can find a million examples of that stuff still being pumped out there that we have to protect people from, the filth of the mainstream media. Paul Lewis's comments that I picked up on at the end of last year, and I wrote an article for in my surely soon-to-be award-winning newsletter. Paul Lewis, this highly influential financial journalist who's kept his pension fund in cash for the last 10 years and is immensely proud about it. So our work is never done. That's the lesson I've got to remember. But we've got to be vocal. We've got to be passionate about what we do. Real financial advice is still an absolute tiny slither of what it could be, and it'll never be more than that. And that, is fine. But we've just got to be cognizant of it. And the second lesson is, dovetailing off that again, sorry, Alan, this is also a bit so whatty, but it's even your ideal client profile clients or prospects who come to you still don't have any clue as to what you actually do until they sit down with you. So again, it's not making any assumptions. It's just having really great discovery meetings, using whatever means you can, whether it's the bucket, whether it's showing them a very quick cash flow graph from a mock-up client or what have you, giving them something to look at and understand, and not using the jargon and terminology and getting into conversations about, your pension fund's fourth quartile, we can get it up to second. No, real financial planning is such an esoteric art form, and it is art as much as science, and very few people do it, and no one out there knows anything about it. Those are the two lessons I'm going to learn, I think, for 2024. Try and retain when I communicate with people. Mr. Smith.
Number one thing I did wrong last year was I overcommitted. I said yes to pretty much everything. I spoke at God knows how many events, Andy Hart's event, Abraham's event, Lee Robertson's event, money marketing events, God knows, all sorts of other things. My profile was pretty high last year. I wrote articles for the trade press, did a lot of other stuff, and it was kind of all over the place. I just said, and all those things, you say yes in the moment, they take time, they take effort, and they remove you from what you're really supposed to be doing.
I think stuff overall. At the top, Alan. It's stuff at the top, mate.
Well, what do you say when you're trying to get famous? You say yes to everything. What's that? It's your phrase.
Yeah, if you want to get famous,
well, we've been cancelled. You say no to everything. Management, so
it's a Warren Buffett thing.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah, he says no to everything, which was a lesson to be learned. The other thing was it was inconsistency. I was kind of there's a rumor out there that I've got a kind of magpie brain. and I'm just sort of floating around and I like shiny new objects. Well, there was some truth in it last year. AI broke through last year. I spent a lot of time now. We're not going to talk about it right now. There's huge amounts of potential. We're using some things already, but I was kind of all over the shop, really, in terms of, So I was kind of disorganized. So I overcommitted, and I was inconsistent. Those are the learns. Those are the things that I'm going to do different this year. Cheers.
Okie dokie, great stuff. Mr. Hart, I will not forget you this time. I do apologise for last time.
Brilliant. I'm going to keep it short and sweet. I'm going to go a bit off topic, but when I read the script for the show, I thought it was two things that you've learned from last year, not sort of things that you've sort of made mistakes. Anyway, whatever. I'll keep it simple. So I'm not really a fan of goals. I think people should try and acquire new skills that will then lead to goals. When people set goals, they're quite loose. So I'm a fan of learning new skills. Anyway, so a skill I learned last year was PowerPoint. It sounds a bit lame, but I needed to up my skills on it. Anyway, so that's what I'm basically just trying to say. Don't set goals, learn new skills. So if this year you've got a lot of stuff to achieve, rather than saying I'm going to do X by then or Y by then, just learn new skills. Like it's called your skill stack, as Scott Adams talks about. And yeah, that's a final point. My next learning is, it's an investing point, but principles will see you through. The 2023, the facts did change. Yeah, interest rates went through the roof. Cash was, finally attractive. But still the principles apply. Human ingenuity, invest in human ingenuity. The stock market is human ingenuity captured. Global equities. All of these facts change. You're predominantly invested in these 500 companies that have 500 CEOs that all 500 are making decisions around all of the facts that have changed. And that's why the stock market will always outsmart anything that's thrown at it, because you've got real people making real decisions based on the new facts that have been presented to us. So the principles never change, even though the facts will always change. So again, it's just hammering home that point. And 2023 was challenging from that point of view. And during the sideways years, the downwards markets, that's when great advisors stand tall. During the times when the markets are flying, I mean, any idiot can make a sort of living out of it.
Absolute shambles.
Yeah. Back to this prediction thing. I mean, the stock market is generally going up 75% of the time and going down 25% of the time. So if I was a pirate in pinstripe and was asked to do a prediction every year, I would just go with the data. 75% of the time the market's going up and advancing, 25% of the time it's temporarily declining. So, these are numbers, people, that are asked to make these predictions. So you would just go high because you got a 75%, you got 3-1 odds in your favour. Anyway, that's it.
But if it bleeds, it leads, doesn't it? People, the Morgan Stanley expert says market's going to tumble. It's like, oh shit, I better read that.
I mean, if you just followed the data and you just said, well, it's going to go up. It's going to go up by 10% next year. That's roughly where we're going to end up, and you'll be righter or more correct than all these other idiots. It's just ridiculous. Anyway, back to you.
Thank you, Andrew. So Ultra has just slagged off the point of setting goals, and 3, 2, 1. The final thing in our thing is goals. So, Carl Delavoce, what's your goal for 2024?
So, I'm loving that drum roll. Anyway, Alan mentioned the word. Alan mentioned the word intentional working and living for me. So I've been down the burnout road before, right? And you'd imagine, well, if you've been down there once, you wouldn't let it happen again. I nearly let it happen again this year. I spent Christmas nursing a bit of a cold, and the reason I'm standing today is because I popped a disc in my back. So for me, that's my body going, dude, sort something out here, because otherwise you're on a slow road to nowhere. So for me, it's to be really intentional about looking after myself, so that, my job here at Meta is we have a really good thing going. So if I can be the best type of, leader, to be a visionary, to inspire people, well, then that's where I'm going to have the most impact. And that's where this team needs me most. So I need to, in order to do that, and the same for at home for my kids, in order to be the best dad at home and the best leader at Metis, I need to look after myself, number one. And look, that sounds awfully selfish and self-indulgent and all of that kind of stuff.
Mate, that sounds
bloody,
good.
Yeah, and look, you three guys are great accountability partners for me, and when I'm stepping over the edge and going towards, but it's not bullshit, and I do have great support around me in terms of friends, family, colleagues, and I'm going to be listening to that advice, and I'm actually really, really excited as to what 2024 is going to bring. I have a feeling it's going to be my best year ever. I really, really do. So very, very excited.
Your point there, Carl, about sort of looking after yourself is really well made. And again, we've talked about this in the past. I might mention it to you. There's a book called Essentialism, Greg McEwen, and there's a chapter in that. There's a whole section. You can look at it. He's done specific blogs on it. It's called Protect the Asset. And the point being, you can people in your circumstances, you look after everyone else around them and trying to keep the team going and support the team and the family and everything else. But you're the big domino. If you go down, if you're getting stressed or you sort of can't show up, then there's so many other negatives that happen as a result of that. So it's so important to protect the asset. And the number one asset is you. And it sounds selfish, as you say, but it's absolutely not. It'd be selfish not to do that, is the point. But check out Greg McEwen's writings.
Ultra.
I think all of us in this call have read enough books to know what we need to be doing in terms of looking after ourselves. But implementing monk mode a lot more in 2024 is going to be something that, I'm also going to be doing as much as I can. But it's hard. But, we can read all the books, we can listen to all the podcasts, we can watch all the YouTube videos, but we need to wake up every day and put in the right behaviours. And we know what the triggers and dominoes are for ourselves. So let's try and keep each other all accountable. Anyway, that's it.
Okay, so it's round to me, I think, with my one goal for 2024, and it kind of just ties in
right,
with
no more of that drop, Nick. We've had enough of that drop.
There's two more to go, mate, and I might do it all through when you're talking. My one ties in with Voice's sort of health and well-being. Mine's to be more stoic and not to get maybe so caught up in what happens. Marcus Aurelius said, and then Shakespeare quoted it as well. But it's not what happens to you in life. It's how you choose. How you choose. That's the important word there. How you choose to react to events. So I'm just going to try and disassociate myself from what happens to me, and focus more on actually how you react to it. So I think just from being a more loving, reasonable, rounded Lick Ninken. That's my goal for 2024.
Set yourself up for failure there, buddy.
Yeah.
Right, Smithy.
Simplify. In a word, in a world of overwhelm and so many other opportunities.
It would have been perfect if you just said simplify.
Simplify and focus.
Yep, that's great. Right, so we're getting to the end of this now. We have one person to go with one item. He doesn't do them, but Ultra will squeeze one out for us. Come on, Andrew, give us a goal.
For me, it's Trap Live because it's the only sort of... For me, it's Trap Live because all the other stuff I've done before in terms of conferences and Trap and stuff. So Trap Live is my goal for 2024. So hopefully it's a great success. So we're gonna put that together. So back to you, Nick.
Excellent. That's a very good point. Trap Live, dear Trappists, is May the 9th, Thursday, May the 9th. TheRealAdvisorPodcast.com. There's our website, spanking brand new and shiny, not yet defiled by the toils of 2024. Go there, go to TheRealAdvisorPodcast.com and register your interest in Trap Live, May the 9th, somewhere in London, if we can ever get a venue organised. So we're looking forward to seeing as many of you there as our venue will accommodate. Okay, we've given it now, what is it? Look at that, almost exactly on the hour, 59 minutes, 12 seconds and counting. And there she is. I can see her. She's waddling up the drive. She has the... it's amazing. This never works when I go to it now, does it? The Trappist questions drop doesn't work. Okay, just trust me. Yet again, the post is at the door, and she's brought a sack of Trappist questions, which we're going to go through. You can leave a question for the Trap Pack to answer in the pinned tweet on Twitter or X. Thank you, Andrew. That's the letter opening one. Might be noticeable. Stop. Yeah, thank you. And leave a question via the pinned tweet at the top of the Twitter timeline, and your questions will be answered. We're kind of now into September from last year, the questions we're going through. We will get to you, just bear with us. So the first question is from Guy Skinner. Guy is on LinkedIn, and I'll put a link to his LinkedIn profile in the so-called show notes. Happy New Year, Aaron Gunningham. Guy Skinner asks, can you do an episode on advisor remuneration and paraplanner remuneration? Also interested, another couplet question, also interested to hear your thoughts on who does what within the client journey process. Right, okay, let's just do the advisor remuneration and paraplanner remuneration and see how much time we got left. Smith or Wodge?
I can lead off on this. Yeah, interesting one. I think the industry, profession, call it what you will, has evolved significantly over the years, but there's some basic things which still sit in place. When I was back in the day, when I was drunk in charge of a wheelbarrow,
Grab yourself a drink, a very long drink. It's story time with Alan Smith.
We bring Appleton out for special occasions, okay?
Oh, that's my favourite one. I was just trying to lead you on that one. When I was in Alperton and other associated places back in the day, there was a kind of default advisor compensation model that worked, which is effectively a third. It was a third for the advisor, a third for the cost of the overhead and the regulatory cost and everything else, and a third for profit. And, over the years, this has evolved and changed so much. And I've spoken to a lot of founders and CEOs of advisory firms over the years, and I've seen some spreadsheets that you need a degree in maths and rocket science and stuff to work out how the hell you get paid. There's so much complexity. But again, and in line with my goal for the year, you go full circle and go back to the things that sort of somehow always worked. What's changed over the years, though, quite interesting, is that the industry, or the profession as is now, has moved from an industry, which was a sales industry. And I tell you what, if you could sell back in the day, especially if you're direct sales or something, you deserve to get paid quite highly because it was quite a difficult skill. And as we know from the data in the past, so many people joined up in sort of direct selling organizations, and most of them failed. Most didn't work because it's a tough thing to do, to succeed at year after year consistently. Once you've gone through your kind of friends and family list, like apparently all these organizations would encourage you to do, there was no more. You couldn't sell, so you're kind of out of business. So those that were successful, those who were able to sell, build relationships, build rapport, had to get paid appropriately to do the job. But we're far more of a service profession now. So the skill sets are different. So the remuneration needs to be different. There's no sort of right and wrong way of doing it. But broadly speaking, you start with the company needs to generate profit. What's your sort of target profit margin? What does it cost to run your organization? What are the sort of the fixed costs, the overheads, etc. And you work about what is a reasonable and competitive amount to pay anyone in the organization, be the advisors, paraplanners, anyone at all. Our target, our goal, and we're pretty consistent on this, there's a lot of data out there where you can benchmark. We always want to be top quartile in terms of compensation across the board. And so we always benchmark that. We make sure that we're competitive. But if you're deciding on where to work purely on money and nothing else, then you wouldn't fit here anyway. We want to create, the right culture, the right environment, and also all the other employee benefits. And I think ultimately, and there's a lot of research on this. Read Dan Pink's book called Drive, for an example. But money should be a hygiene factor. People should be paid well, paid appropriately, but there should be so many other things which are relevant. Dan Pink talks about mastery. So we help all of our team develop, get qualified, etc. They want autonomy, be able to make their own decisions. And money shouldn't be the only thing that they do. So I think that's a starter for 10. So broadly speaking, the kind of third model, it's vaguely in that ballpark, but it depends what role you are performing. If you're somebody who can go out and win a lot of business, go and bring in loads and loads of new fantastic clients, you're going to expect a different remuneration model to someone who's just showing up, I say just, but doing the job, day-to-day job of delivering financial planning to clients, because that's a more common skill set, if you like, than someone that can win big ticket clients. That's my starter for 10. Who wants to go now?
Yeah, I'll jump in. So, look, we've like any other business, we've done various models throughout the years, and 10 years in, what we've settled on, and we've been at this probably for 3, maybe 4 years now. So for our private client managers, it's a percentage of all income. So that remunerates people who bring in new clients, but also remunerates people to make sure that existing clients stay on board. Because after all, it's equally as important for us to have happy clients that are really sticky and stay with the business as it is to get new clients in the door as well. And then I suppose, broadly speaking, for the rest of the team who aren't in business development and bringing in clients, so that's your financial planners, your client service people. We have as you say, Alan, a very competitive basic salary, but then we do a team bonus and an individual bonus. The individual bonus is based on personal KPIs, and you have to get to a certain score. And if you get to a certain score on your individual KPIs, you're then eligible for the team bonus as well. But you got to sort your own personal KPIs first. That's worked really well for us over the last couple of years. We've just concluded 8 full quarters where we've got full team bonus, which is really good. I suppose the danger with doing that is that people kind of come to expect it. But anyway, if we keep outperforming, we'll keep paying bonuses. So, look, I think rewarding not just the salespeople, i.e. the private client managers, but rewarding the entire team for the team doing really well is vitally important if you want everyone engaged and doing their best for the business.
Just a quick point on that, Carl. In the UK, at least, you have to be a bit careful about having, sales people being remunerated for sales. There's FCA have published information on this, and they're asking. There's another Dear CEO letter, I think, just gone out. More, I think, focused on the discretionary manager side of things, but they're uncomfortable because they believe, and it's true, incentives drive behavior, so it might lead to unsatisfactory practices with that. So just something for UK advisors are aware of that and conversant with that. There needs to be a broader base of of activities, for advisors other than winning new clients. But it's I'm sure you're managing that.
Very fair point, and that's why the private client managers are not just paid on new biz; they're paid on everything in the book, and that's why the KPIs are there. So the personal KPIs, and we have to have some metric as to we can't be paying bonuses if the business is, for example, losing money, which is not. But so that's why we have those in place. But it's a fair point, and the same applies here. So we do have to be careful as to how we structure those. But it's if the business is doing well, then everybody does well.
Great stuff. Thanks, guys. I mean, myself and Andy can't really contribute to this, but it's an ongoing one. And Guy, you asked, could we do an episode on it? We could do an episode on it, but I mean, yeah. Andy?
There is, Alan, can you think of who are the people that come out of these benchmark study and reports and stuff? They get circulated within our groups every so often, like the typical advisor,
the brand we were mentioned,
income levels, where they're based.
Yeah, there's several of them.
Planner.
There's a company, the one that springs to mind. I don't think we've got anything to do with them, but they publish it. It's called, I think I'm correct in saying BWD. That's the name that springs to mind. I could check it out afterwards. Yeah. BWD, but there's at least 3 who published this. I mean, you look at it and you think, I mean, it certainly when we compare, it's something that I think we'll be happy to share with our team because it shows that we pay well.
Right.
Obviously we're in London. The people earn more, but the costs are more, etc. But there's some of these reports. I think BWD are a recruitment company which published this, and it's regional, depends on. So they've got it all broken down for advisors, senior advisor, experienced.
Yeah.
Paraplan. It's a murky old world. When I often see things sent to us about people from recruitment companies talking about, I've got this paraplanner, And we've got our own definition of what a power planner. We call them associates, but it's to do with their qualifications and experience and everything else. But I think there are certain words that attract higher compensation and higher remuneration than otherwise might be. So somebody who's sort of currently studying for a diploma, for example, is earlier on in their career, in my experience. It isn't necessarily an experienced chartered level power planner who would command a premium in terms of compensation. So, but it's quite good to have a rough, like a lot of things in life, it's a rough guide, it's a rough benchmark. And then if you're trying to, if guys' questions anyway, trying to optimize, find the perfect compensation model, it doesn't exist. You try and test things, compare yourself with the market, but make sure there's a lot more. If you're recruiting people, I presume he's talking from a recruitment viewpoint, a lot more in your offering than just the money things. You're never going to win that just competing and paying the highest amount. There's always someone else who probably pay a bit more.
Yeah, and I think, Alan, to your previous point, keep it simple. Like the ancillary benefits, everything that goes around the money, right? Fantastic, knock yourself out. But how people, when someone walks into this office here, I need to know immediately what their package is, as opposed to going, fucking hell, what did I agree here? Which is how I used to do it. So I used to have like different things all over the place for
different
everybody.
people,
Yeah. Whereas now it's like it's standard. Everybody knows, I know, they know, and it's easy for people to predict what they might make if they, based on. So keep it simple, keep it simple, keep it simple.
Keep it simple.
You should be able to. Yeah, go on.
I'm just going to say that nowadays, I mean, when I started, it was just, basic, you was paid salaries and stuff. But as we've grown and matured as a business, we've got a very comprehensive, package in terms of, quite, I would say, big, much higher than the average non-contributory pension contributions, life insurance, death and service, private medical insurance, bunch of other stuff, which obviously is not necessarily reflected on the amount you receive every month. So last few years we have, and this is something for people who've got running firms with teams, whatever their employees are, create a what do we call it? Like total benefit statement. Once a year, just say, because if you paid, call it 50 grand or something, but you look at, and including, even holidays, that not public holidays, but additional holidays we get, and we give, no one works for us between Christmas and New Year, but that's a cost to the business of all those things. But you sort of add all those various aspects up, and from memory, last time I looked, there's probably comfortably another 30% on top in terms of what how you are compensated overall. And I think it's important sometimes to remind people that it's not necessarily just the salary that you get after tax in your paycheck at the end of the month or wherever it might be. So total benefit statements are useful. Okay, did Andy have a point? Is he gone? Is he?
Okay, great stuff. No, I think we're done on that. Really, just closing on that. We, Andy, Alan, and myself know a member of this peer group that we go to once a month, and his firm, a well-known, well-respected firm, they brought in bonus structures, employee sort of a share buy into the business, and the staff were actually disappointed they weren't at the levels they thought they were going to get. It's like you've got to be really careful about this kind of stuff, haven't you? The road to hell is paved with good intentions. Okay, we're over. We're at 71 minutes, and we've got another question in the hopper. Gents, do we want to do this, or do we want to move on to Culture Corner?
Yeah, we'll just do it quickly.
One's giving a thumb up, one's giving a thumb down. Is that voice?
Just it's mainly for you two guys, I think. Is it just?
Okay, all right. So
we generally have a 90-minute limit on this. We're at 71. We've got 90 minutes.
Okay,
so go.
All right. Okay, let's see if this works. This one is from Benjamin Mitchell, who's on Twitter as @TheMoneyScott. Benjamin says, "Dear the Four Horsemen of the Apocalypse, the pile of trap never fails to provide the perfect mix of humour and value to us mere mortal financial services professionals. Thanks for all the time you spend on this." Yeah, if only you knew. It's really appreciated, and I've already taken so many things on that you've said on board. This one is lightly aimed at Nick and Andy as one-man band extraordinaires. How do you approach power planning as a small business owners? Do you outsource this or do it in-house? And if so, any experiences or tips to share? Thanks in advance. Ultra, do you want to go first?
You go first, mate.
Brilliant, thank you. So, coming back to my 3 wins of 2023, I don't want to sound so aggrandizing. But I do run a pretty simple and elegant business, and I don't need a power planner. Can I say it out loud? I just do not need a power planner. So I don't use a power planner. Most of my clients, like my family's wealth, are going to go onto one of two preferred platforms. I know that. I know what the investment solution is going to be for those clients because it's the same investment solution that I use. I take my own medicine. I don't chop and change clients. Once they're on a platform, that's it. They should be there for the rest of their lives. I don't do fund selection and all that crap, stuff that perhaps power planners can definitely add value with. I don't mind writing the suitability report. I like writing suitability reports. My suitability reports are actually readable, and I think makes sense to Joe Public, which is the goal. So that's it. I don't do it. Ben or Benjamin. I just don't think you need to do it as if you have a one-man band lifestyle business. I don't think you need a power planner. Again, it's a bit like back office systems. I think they're a crutch. I think you need to have them. Actually, I don't think you do. You do your platform due diligence once a year. You don't need to do it for every client case. That's nonsense. You do it once a year. So that's a power planner job that doesn't need to be done if you're not doing it every time. That's. I think you can do it. I think you can do it on your own. Andrew.
I run a very similar business to Nick in terms of the outcome that clients get in terms of the offering platform, investment solutions, etc. But I do outsource my power planning. I've outsourced my power planning since I've pretty much started, even when I had no money coming in. So yeah, I do recommend getting a power planner. They're a second brain to look at things, and that there is quite a lot of value added to it. However, my counterintuitive advice in this space is find a non-famous power planner. Famous power planners are spending a lot of time on social media and trade press, and then they get very busy, and then they start tripling their fees, and their service gets terrible. There's lots of small power planning companies out there that nobody really knows about, but they sort of do come up on searches, and you find them on LinkedIn, and they contact you. So my advice to someone starting out is find a non-famous power planner. When you find one, bottle it. We will study it. They're very rare, and don't tell anyone who they are. So I don't tell anyone who the power planner is I use. If I mentioned it on here, they would have 100 new clients by the morning. Their fees would quadruple. They'd forget about me, and their service would hit the floor. So my recommendation is find a non-famous power planner. There's loads of them out there, really, really good independent firms. And work with them, have a couple of cases, trial with them, and then once you like them, stay with them for a long time. So that's my advice. Back to you, Nick.
The ever generous Andy Hart. He just want his power planner to be successful at all. No chance.
I hope you find that very helpful.
Trust me, people have thanked me about that in the past. Thanks, Andy, for telling me to find a non-famous.
By the way, thank you about your IKEA wardrobe.
So much better since I've gone away from a famous power planning company.
The wardrobe. I heard a phrase the other day, and I thought of Maven immediately. Andy Hart, often wrong, never in doubt.
Exactly. Thank you. That'll be on my gravestone.
And also on the tombstone will be my IKEA wardrobe. It's more than a wardrobe. It's a friend. Right.
It's his best friend, his wardrobe.
I thought that was his car. No.
It's whatever's suddenly in his head at that moment in
time. It's his iWatch as well. He's got so many friends.
Leave him alone. He's got a cold. He's
suffering with flu despite being vaccinated.
My lord.
Okay,
talk about
right.
Kick him out when he's down. The final point from Matty Boy's question.
We're at 76 minutes. Let's move on to Culture Corner and pray this drop works. Okie dokie. So this would be a good Culture Corner thing on its own. An app, a website called Goodreads. If, like me, you're a bit of a sado and you like to store all the books you've read and the year you read them in and how you rated them and tagged them, Goodreads is a really good free site to doing that. I read 26 books in 2023. My best year was 2019 when I read 41. Why do you care? You don't care. 26 books last year. My top books from last year were Unreasonable, and there are links to all of these in the so-called show notes. Unreasonable Hospitality by Will Guidera. Excellent about service and embedding service at every level of a business to give clients just a wow feeling. The Bet, between the cretinous Paul Ehrlich and Julian Simon at the start of the 1970s. Ehrlich, the essential prophet of doom, who's always wrong, said we're going to run out of commodities. People are going to die in their millions. And this economist called Julian Simon said, you're wrong. We'll have a bet on it. At the end of the 1980s, or 1970s rather, Simon had won hands down. Ehrlich was wrong about everything. Why is that important to you as a real financial advisor? Because you need to be reinforcing optimism in people's lives. All right. And you need to know who your enemies are. People like Paul Ehrlich are the enemy. Ask by Dan Solin, really an updated version of how to win friends and influence people, but really, really good. And I guess my final book will be the Elon Musk biography by Walter Isaacson. Whatever you think of Musk, it's a really, really good read, warts and all. I know that Voice has read it. Ultra, you've read it as well. I think, I don't know if Alan had. You have? Okay, all of us have. Well worth reading. If only, again, whatever you think about him, it's good. You need to know about him because he is an important player in our lives, whether you like that or not. So those are my culture corners. Mr. Smith, the big. I'm not allowed to say what it is because Andrew gets upset. What's your culture corner?
Big George Foreman. Bring things back down to earth after someone who reads 41 books in a year. This is a film which came out last year. It's now free on Sky, I think. I watched it over the holidays. Super inspirational. So I grew up in the generation which George Foreman is of that era with, the Muhammad Ali, Joe Frazier, Ken Norton, arguably the best era ever in heavyweight boxing. And he became world champion. His backstory is really, really tough. And against the odds, he became world champion. He fought in the famous Rumble in the Jungle with Muhammad Ali and lost, and then effectively stopped after that, became a preacher. The whole thing is just a fascinating journey of this real-life person who then, 20 years later, this is not sharing this, Carl, don't worry about me giving away the story. This is public information that anyone should know about. But 20 years later, because he needed to make some money again, he goes back into the ring. And guess what? Arguably, one of the most sensational sporting moments in history in any sport, when he became world champion again 20 years later in his 40s. I like films which are really uplifting, positive, and inspirational. And you come away from that almost with a tear in your eye thinking, that's incredible. That is fantastic. And the guy he's in his 70s now, and he's still going strong. And another thing is all the money he made from his famous George Foreman grill as a sort of side.
Which is what I was going to say. I hope you mentioned it. It's bloody awesome.
Yeah,
we used it loads over Christmas.
The George Foreman grill. Yeah, he made more money from that than he ever made for all the millions. In boxing. He made more money than the George Foreman grill. Yeah. The people that made the grill wanted Hulk Hogan originally, and they left a message on his aunt's phone. He never got back to them, so then they called the second person in line. So it should be called the Hulk Hogan Grill, but Hulk was too busy doing whatever he was doing. So that's the best phone call that the Hulk missed for George Foreman. Talking about sporting excellence, it was amazing that Luke Littler won the darts championships 2 nights ago. Or last night. Hang on.
Anyway, let's move on from that.
Did he win it? I thought he's got to the final. Has it happened?
This is Thursday, Alan. It's amazing.
Oh, I see.
The darts last night.
What if you're wrong, Andrew? Making predictions.
Amazing. He's an absolute inspiration.
Yeah.
Right, back on planet Earth.
Yeah.
Wodge, Netflix Blue Zones. Oh no, I've said what you're going to say. Sorry, Andy.
No, well, I need you to say because I always forget what I put in there. So
I cannot win.
There's I can't even remember what it's called, but it's if you just Google the Blue Zones on Netflix, it's about the 5 areas in the world where they have more centurions than anywhere else. Anyway, it's perfect viewing for this time of the year when you're all thinking about the new healthy you, as I am. But you know what? The thing that comes out of this, they talk about diets and blah, blah, blah. They're all pretty small communities and they all have massive social connection and they're all kind of in it together. So don't be trying to do anything on your own. Go and find your buddies and do stuff with your buddies. That seems to keep people alive much longer than anything else. And they all have a glass of wine pretty much. So that's... encouraging.
Yeah,
we should live forever then. 4 of us. Got our buddies. Occasional glass of wine. Happy days.
That is why the lockdown period now seems like just another life, doesn't it? But that's why it's caused so much damage, because we are social animals, and it was denied us for that period of time. Ultra.
True.
Okay, so this is a podcast recommendation. You can listen to it on YouTube or your podcast of choice. It's Alain de Botton, who's the founder of School of Life. It's on Diary of a CEO podcast. It's called The Love Expert. The real reason we are lonely, loveless, and depressed. The title doesn't do it justice.
Yeah, no.
This guy is he's a philosopher. He's amazing. Do check it out. It's a massive, strong recommendation. Certainly if you're married, in a relationship, in that whole space, it's absolutely brilliant. Do check it out.
Okay, great stuff. Well, I think we've managed to make it to the end of another episode of Trap, haven't we? We got to the end of episode 36. We're 83 minutes in. That's more than enough value for money for our beloved Trappist audience. Yeah, let's put a wrap on this. Let's tie a bow on it. We've emptied our vowels, and another pile of trap has slid down the U-bend of time. Thank you, dear Trappists, for your precious time. Please do leave a review on iTunes. 6 out of 5 stars would be nice. Remember to subscribe on your podcast app of choice. That way you get a freshly baked episode in the early hours of every other Thursday morning. Like and subscribe to our burgeoning YouTube channel so you can look at our glorious visages. But until then, dear Trappists, take care out there, and we'll see you next time. Adios.
See you later. Goodbye.
Happy New Year.
Absolute shambles. That's a new one. Empty your vowels.